First of all, thank y'all for being here today. This is a special meeting of the Audit Committee meeting. It's not a regular scheduled meeting. It's a special meeting, which has some rules around it. One, we can't add anything to the agenda. We can delete anything from the agenda, but we can't add anything to the agenda. Mark, in the room, we have Tony Schiavone. You know Tony. And we'll do formal introductions in just a minute. Janine Richmond, Jeff Tansel, David Hewitt, Heather Fennell, and Mike Sullivan. And got you on the phone, Mark. So once again, thank y'all for being here. I just wanted to go around the table real quick, just do the quick intros, because we got a couple new members, and then we got 3 of us oldies who were on there last year, relatively speaking. So why don't we let the staff go first? So we'll do ladies first. Heather, you want to introduce yourself?
Beauty for the beast.
There you go.
I had to think about that first thing. I'm Heather, town clerk. I've been here since 2004.
I'm David Hewitt, town manager, finance officer. I've been here since 2007, I think.
Wow. Oh, God.
I believe this will be my 13th budget message that's upcoming.
Wow. Janine?
Janine Richmond. I've owned a home at Holden Beach since 2008. I work as the chief financial officer for the Baptist Retirement Homes in Winston-Salem.
Are you still working?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I wish I wasn't, but
Okay.
you know.
I thought you were retired.
That would be nice.
All right. Jeff?
Well, I am retired. We moved here in 2016, live here full time. Did 42 years with BB&T and another bank that they bought out. So in the operations, finance operations for the last 15 years.
And I'm sorry, I'm Woody Tyner. I've been a homeowner since 95. I've been retired for 3 years now from BB&T, and Jeff and I worked together, but we never had the opportunity to work together in the same department. So I was at BB&T for 36 years. Mr. Sullivan, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Mike Sullivan. I'm one of the commissioners, and I've been here since 2010.
Okay, all right. Mark? Oh, I forgot Tony. I'm sorry. I thought
I can barely speak. I've been fighting a cold. Tony Schiavone, we've been here since 1999. I actually live in Fayetteville here about half the time, hoping to see that percentage increase over time. So happy to serve.
And Tony didn't say it, but he is the ex-mayor of Fayetteville. So he brings a different perspective. He said to put up with his BS before. Hey, Mark, go ahead.
Homeowners since we built our house in '99. I moved down here full time in 2009. First joined the audit committee in 2010. My career, I started out in a CPA firm in Chicago for 5 years and then spent 30 plus years in corporate America. I was a victim or a beneficiary, depending on your perspective, of a number of mergers and acquisitions over my career. Went through a Chapter 11 and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, glad to listen in.
All right. Thank you, bud. All right. As I've said in my email, and I'm going to apologize right up front, it's going to feel like we're rushing a little bit today because we are. We got the luncheon at 12 o'clock to celebrate the town's 51st anniversary, which everybody's welcome to stay. David needs to probably get out of here quarter till or so, 20 till, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I hate to miss 50 of the constituents.
Yes.
Present in a room on Valentine's Day. There's a lot of just target-rich environment.
Yeah. So we're going to, like I said, it's going to feel like we're rushing a little bit. We probably are. Secondly, we got some time-dependent things we need to get accomplished today. One of them, as you probably see in here, we want to solicit bids for a new auditor. And we're trying to get that out the door today, so we're going to rush through that a little bit too. So let me go over the agenda real quick, make sure everybody understands what we got here. Approval of minutes, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The public comments on the agenda items. Talk about the meeting schedule. We'll talk about real quickly where we are on the 2018 audit results and our plans to address those deficiencies. We'll talk about the solicitation of audit services for this coming year, and you had a couple handouts that there were samples to look at. We'll talk about a meeting we need to have on March 2nd or 3rd to talk about the bids we get. From there, we have a request from the Board of Commissioners on formalizing our process for choosing an auditor and how we came to our recommendation. We're going to talk about the audit ordinance for a minute. We'll review what the ordinance says our responsibilities are, but then we're going to have a homework assignment between now and the next meeting, which 10, 11 kind of go together. Then we'll go around the table, see if anybody's got any comments or things they want to add, then we'll adjourn. And once again, I'm going to apologize right up front for rushing through it. This is my first meeting as chairman. I was on the audit committee last year. That was my first year, so I've worked with Big Ben went off. Talked with David, and we came up with this agenda. And once again, I know I keep apologizing, but we're gonna feel like I'm rushing and ramrodding a little bit. But we got to get on moving on some things. All right. So first of all, I need formal approval of this agenda. Anybody have anything they want to take off the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And we got a motion to approve by Tony, a second by Janine. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. All right. We have at least 2 sets or 3 sets of minutes. Heather, I don't think we included those in the packet, did we? Are they?
Yeah, the 2 cents were in the 3rd set she wasn't able to finish. So
Okay.
the 2 were.
And I know the new members haven't had a chance to even know if the minutes are correct or not, so we'll have to rely on us 3 old dogs to approve the 3 sets of minutes. So you said the
2.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
September 19th and
November 9th.
November 19th. The reason October 11th is not ready is the young lady who took the minutes for us resigned, and they're still trying to find the minutes on her PC and get them done. So I'm assuming that Mark and Tony had an opportunity to look at the minutes. Any thoughts, any changes? All right, well, I need a motion to approve the September 19th and November 19th minutes.
Can I make a motion? I was really not in attendance. Can I able to make a motion?
You're a member of the body.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the September 19th and November 19th minutes as presented.
All right, got a first by Tony, a second by Jeff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, thank you very much. Public comments on the agenda? Anybody in the public want to comment?
No, thank you.
Okay, no comments? All right, if you'll look at the schedule that I sent out, the scratch schedule, it's, Jeff, it's the next page.
Pages.
There you go.
It's weird, isn't it?
It is weird.
I'll write them down. They don't.
There's a
All right, so last year we settled on Fridays in April, July, October, and January. Not sure why we did January. So we were kind of assuming, number one, that if we had it on Fridays, it'd make it easier for out-of-town folks to get here. So if we keep this same schedule, we're looking at April 3rd. July 3rd happens to be a holiday for the town, so we're going to move it to the next Friday, which will be July 10th. October 9th would be the next closest Friday. And then we ended up having several meetings in November and December last year to review the audit and vote on the audit and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out December 11th down there. So that's the 4. We're trying to get them on the calendar so number 1 we can tell the public. Number 2, David and Heather can get it on their schedules too, because we need them in the meetings.
That was December what?
December 11th,
Will the meetings be at 1 p.m. or 10:30?
1 p.m.
If there's a preference to have it later in the day, I'm okay with that too. It's just whatever
Doesn't
works
matter
for
to
you
me.
guys that are traveling.
And if something comes up where a majority of us can't make it, then we'll work around and reschedule. But I'd like to have a quorum here if we're going to have a meeting.
But I was kind of thinking if y'all like to get down and get the meeting over with and have your afternoon free for your 3-day weekend at the beach was what, instead of having something late on the afternoon. I didn't know what your preference was. But one works for me.
Okay. Well, let's go with one for right now. So, anybody see any issues with these dates? I need to check one right quick myself. Mark, I apologize. I got to use my phone for a second.
He did say he was going to get a drink.
Oh, did he? You think he's drinking
I've
over?
been listening to everything. Just so you're aware, we're going to be gone pretty much the first half of July, so I couldn't have made a July meeting on any date unless it were second half of the month, so that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, April 3rd. I'm good. All right, go back on mute. All right, everybody good? I mean,
So far,
generally
yeah.
speaking. All right. So I need a motion to approve these dates as our regularly scheduled meetings. We'll probably end up having, we're going to have a special meeting on March 2nd or 3rd. We need to talk about that in a minute. And that will be just to review the bids for the audit services and make a decision. And we'll, like I said, we'll finalize that date in a minute. And then we'll probably have to have a special meeting in November maybe to review the audit.
Or depending on how quick the auditor finishes in order to get it submitted on time.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a flux
Yep.
thing.
Yep. So we'll
For
try
a
to,
regular schedule, this
yeah,
is fine.
we'll try to keep this to this schedule as much as possible and not call too many special meetings. All right, so I need a motion. Did I get a motion to approve this calendar? Okay, I need a motion to approve. All right, Jeff set first.
I'll second it.
Janine second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, I wanted David to just talk a few minutes about the findings in our 2018 audit and then his plans to address the outstanding deficiencies. One of the things I want to kind of emphasize is the auditor works for the Board of Commissioners, and the audit is performed for the Board of Commissioners, and David is responsible to the Board of Commissioners for addressing any deficiencies. As you'll see in the ordinance later on, we are an advisory committee. We are not necessarily the enforcement committee. So I was going to kind of lay that groundwork a little bit. So David, you want to talk about the 2018 audit?
There were two findings. One was internal controls and financial statement preparation, and the solution, the short version of the solution. Initially, I had hoped to develop staff in order to be able to prepare those financial statements. In the interim, a couple of things have come into play. Really, 3 things have come into play. In North Carolina, the preponderance of local governments don't prepare their financial statements. They have relied on auditors to do that. With a change to the Yellow Book standards, that's being pushed away from the auditors as their capability. However, if an audit firm is large enough, they can have a Chinese firewall and in the audit firm and provide those services discreetly, independent, even though it's the same audit firm. Initially, I had hoped to develop that skill in-house as a longer-term personnel evolution kind of thing, and had sent a couple staff members to the School of Government to get some training. One of my staff members has taken a job elsewhere, so when you're only one deep and you put all your eggs in one basket, that kind of kills that. So my backup plan has been to buy the service, and that is reflected, and it's also seen in the Granville County bid solicitation. That's what they're doing, and a number of local governments are being forced to go to that in that direction. We're seeing audit firms this Yellow Book standard is not only changing the way that local governments do business, but it's changing the way audit firms are having to, especially the smaller firms. We're seeing mergers and partnerships and, shall I say, brother-in-law agreements for one firm to prepare audit financial statements and the other firm to prepare the financial statements. I mean, to do the audit, but they're both working for the town. So the short version of that is I'm gonna buy the skill in the short term, with the hope that we're able to do that as a personnel development longer term goal. But I got to get there first, and we're going to have to buy the skill. We've already gotten some preliminary feedback informally on the price of that, $6,000 to $8,000 to buy the financial statements preparation plus whatever the audit fees are.
Is that offset by any reduction in the fee of the audit itself if the statements are prepared?
It's ironic that on the Local Government Commission's website it gives the audit fees for the, and because this is being done already, and it gives the audit fee and then the other services, financial statement preparation fees. In the past, previous auditors, one of our auditors didn't even charge us for it, didn't break it out. We got a flat fee and they did it. But it was noticed as a discrepancy or deficiency for a number of years, and that was a risk management decision. But we always got a unqualified opinion, which a good opinion, irregardless of what that is. So that's for the financial statement preparation. The modified accrual, there is some debate on the auditor's interpretation of how we're doing the modified accrual versus conversion to full accrual at the end of the year. Government works on a cash basis, and at the end of the year rolls it forward. So I won't say there was disagreement with the auditor last year on that, but the circumstances when that audit was compiled were such that I didn't refute the interpretation of that audit at that time. We will discuss vigorously the auditor's interpretation of what exactly modified accrual and conversion to full accrual is before any concurrence on management's letter goes forward. That's where we are with that.
And is that does your staff make those accruals, whatever you decide to be the extent of them, or is that something that the team that's doing the financial statements would do them?
We've relied on the auditor to prepare those for us at the end of the year on the full accrual basis.
So just not hammering the issues, I just want to make sure everybody's clear, particularly the new folks. So we had
and the last piece of that was, since Janine is familiar with governmental accounting, I'm gonna particularly, she doesn't know this yet, we haven't had that discussion.
Congratulations.
But we're going to come to you directly with some specific technical questions that perhaps you can help us with, and I hope that.
I'd be happy to help.
Okay.
So can I ask one question about this? If the auditors are preparing this entry, how can they refute that we didn't do the entry properly? That's a good question.
Good question.
Okay.
Good question.
helps to have a couple CPAs on here.
Yes, it does, and I'm not one of them.
No, I'm not either. I had to learn about the yellow book right quick last year. You know what the yellow book is?
No, I highlighted that. It said, what is the yellow?
But Janine can probably tell you real quick, but I think it's basically the book that tells auditors the practices for auditors, right?
Specifically related to the governmental accounting and auditing, yes.
Okay.
And then there's this other thing called GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
So it sounds like the first one, there's a definite plan to solve that one. The second one is a little more iffy.
Iffy. Yes, sir.
But
We know we've got to deal with it.
Are we gonna deal with it before the audit's done this year?
We have to.
But if you deal with the first one, that should take care of your second one.
We're hoping it'll have a very positive influence on how that second one stands up.
David and I have talked, and my goal is to get out for this year's audit to be, number one, obviously an unmodified opinion or a clean audit. That's important. But secondly, I want to get these two items off the audit because
It's the same auditing firm, though, right?
well, that's what we're talking about in a few minutes.
No, you're bidding out your next one, but the 19 one,
Yes,
are you bidding that one now?
yes,
19, 20.
yes. We'll talk about that one in a minute.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
Ready?
Yeah, Mark.
If the one thing that puzzled me a little bit in the auditor's interpretation is that he, in his comment, he refers to the modified accrual and its impact on interim financial statements. And yet I queried because he was specifically referring to the extra accruals that they had to record as of June 30th. And I said, had there not been any material ones of those that they had to make, would they have been cited for this issue? And he said no. And so I think at least that firm interpretation was specifically referring to the accrual process at year end, as opposed to monthly or quarterly or however else you choose to say it, which I was a little bit confused by.
and that has to deal with the primarily the sales tax distributions that are done on a quarterly basis, and I call it the carry forward, carry back. There are several of those state revenue distributions that are the distribution is made in September. So there's an estimating process that goes into that. That was specific to, that particular point was specific to a few of those state distributed revenues.
So, and once again, I know I'm rushing. If we'd like to have I'm volunteering
You're
you.
fine.
If we'd like to have a separate, just educational session to understand the town financials and the audit, I feel sure you'd be glad to do
I'd
that
love
for
to.
us.
Love to.
It wouldn't be an audit meeting, it'd just be an informational meeting. Is that
That's fine.
fair?
Yes,
Can we
sir.
do it that way? Is that
Absolutely.
okay to do that?
It's fine with me.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at her.
Not if you're meeting as a committee, you'd have
Right.
to make it an open meeting.
Right.
wouldn't you?
All right. So, once again, you've got the details here. Like I said, Dave and I have just talked, and I said, look, we just need to get this distraction off the table. We need to spend whatever money we need to spend. We need to get them fixed and get it off because it's just a distraction. You know, people will keep wanting to bring up the audit issues, and I'm like, we need to get it fixed, make sure everybody feels comfortable that our counting is being done right, get that distraction off the table.
Okay.
All right. And once again, at the end of the meeting, if we can stay around and shoot a fat on the audit if you want to, or at the end if David has to leave. Number 7. I recommended to the Board of Commissioners this past Tuesday night, and they accepted my motion that we go out for bid on the audit services for this coming year.
Now this would be for the year that ends 30 June
Yes.
2020. So the fiscal year that we're currently in
That's
is going to
right.
be the audit.
But the audit, that was a question I had earlier, that one that would have ended June 30th, 19.
That was performed by Rives and Associates.
Yes.
That was the most current.
Right.
Yes. And so we're looking at getting somebody to do the audit as of June 30th of this year. Jeff, the audit has to be completed and turned into the state by October 31st, practically speaking. They will give you a 30-day extension, but we like to try to hit October 31st. I suggested to the board that we go out for solicitation of bids, primarily because I felt like what we paid Rives and Associates for the last couple of years was materially more than what we had paid our previous audit firm, and I wanted to make sure we were getting a competitively priced audit services. In the interim, it appears Rives is just imploded. Number one, they lost a lawsuit that they were charged with fraud with one of their clients. They're appealing that, but they lost the lawsuit. There are two major partners, one which is the one that did our audit, and he was in Raleigh, and the partner that was in Charlotte. The two of them left Rives and Associates and started their own firm.
And have a suit against Rives for $500,000.
Yeah. So, with all that going on, I think it's probably timely that we go ahead and solicit for a new auditor. The partner who did our audit last year has expressed interest and talked to David and wanting to bid on our services again. We had no problem with that auditor as far as performance of his work. You agree with that, David?
We got audit done on time.
Yeah. So, the Board of Commissioners approved us getting an audit bid letter out on the street today, which David's been working on, and he'll talk about that in a few minutes. And we're requesting a 2-week turnaround. The reason we're rushing is we have heard both from the Local Governments Commission and the Board of Commissioners were at a meeting that the League of Municipalities was having in Wilmington a couple of weeks ago. And because of some of these changes that David mentioned earlier, there's fewer and fewer firms that want to do municipal audits. In fact, you said Sharon Edmondson is... I love your phone.
Sorry.
Sharon Edmondson at the Local Governments Commission had said there's like 200 municipalities, there's
Local governments
that are late on their audits or haven't finished their audits
for
yet.
the year ending 30 June 19. There's 200 of them that are late, and it's a function of not being able to get the financial statements done, but it's a function of there's not enough. It's supply and demand.
Yeah.
And I'll go a little bit further. I subscribe to the finance officers listserv. That's where all the finance officers gripe and moan and ask for advice discreetly. But it's also where they post job ads and RFPs. That listserv is blowing up with RFPs. Going out. People. Well, the ones that are astute, there's still some people that are asleep at the wheel on this yellow book standard. There's people are trying to get their auditors lined up for the upcoming year, and it's you can see Granville County's one of those handouts, and they're actually breaking their bid out separately.
And I assume since this is supply and demand, that you can expect the price to go up.
We don't know.
Don't know. You would think maybe so, but we want to get out there and find a good auditor before the supply dwindles and we're left with the dregs. So I supplied you with what Granville County had done recently because number one, Dave really liked that one. Number two, it was fresh on the street, so we could see what they were proposing and seeing how they were dealing with some of the yellow book issues. And secondly, I provided you the request we sent out for the 2018 or for the 2019 audit that we sent out last year, right?
Yeah.
Do we normally send them out for just 1 year? I thought that was a little bit unusual.
Well, we post it for 1 year, but we usually preface the ad with we'll like you for 3 years, but Local Government Commission requires you to update that contract annually.
Yeah.
It's been my experience that you have better responsive people because there's a lot of learning curve that first year. If they think this is a 3 year or some multiple year, whatever.
Yeah. In Granville County,
There's
3 years.
they had laid theirs out for 3 years.
Yeah.
But you had, like you said, you have to annually renew it.
But that's the exact approach that we're going to take, and we have taken that, whether it's informal or formal.
Right. So they know they're willing to make the investment this first year maybe for a longer relationship.
Yeah.
So David, I know you.
Well,
I'm gonna turn it over to you. Let you talk
sure.
about what you plan to
Our proposal from the prior year is basically a shorter version of the Granville County one, and what I would like to do is course, county government's different than municipal government, but I would like to send out the RFP that mimics as appropriate the Granville County one, and a lot of the elements are the same. You know, give us your partner's background, what your audits were in the past, those types of things that will allow it to come back to y'all and you make, some type of decision selection matrix recommendation to the board. So what I would propose is to follow as appropriate the Granville County one. Specifically, the piece that I like in there is how it breaks out the proposal fee in terms of the basic audit and the financial statement preparation, and uses the words. It says, if you don't give us a price for each one independently and together, just in case we want to look at it as with a modular perspective. So that's the piece that I like. The rest of it's kind of boilerplate stuff.
Would that mean that if you didn't want to use them to prepare the financial and you had an alternative to that, you
get somebody else?
Okay.
You would have firm A do the audit and firm B prepare the financial statements, and then it's a matter of professional review.
And with that option, I didn't really catch that. Is that in there kind of option?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's the very back.
I think.
Maybe it's the blue ones that didn't. It could be the blue ones didn't scan well. 'Cause that's the ones that I didn't get real clear feedback.
But it doesn't look like that on my computer.
Really?
I don't know. I would make it look.
Heather's got one of those expensive computers, so she's a power user.
It's page 10, and on page 10, at least on the worksheet, they got it split out.
Yeah,
Were you looking
page
at?
9 at the very
There's a
bottom.
narrative
Has a narrative.
kind of explains what the town's options.
Okay,
why they want the
sorry.
information
Yeah,
separate.
David, outside of that particular issue, when you sent this out last time, was there anything after the fact you said, I wish we had something in there?
I wish I'd had this. I wish I would have had this. It would have occurred to me to go ahead, because there was such a big fuss made about that. If what I didn't know at the time, and I forgot to mention this, we had local legislation, or not local legislation, enabling legislation in the Local Budget and Fiscal Control Act last year that preemptively recognized this as an issue, and it is the only statute that I'm aware of that authorizes the finance officer to contract directly for these type of services. Just straight out says the finance officer can contract with them. But I want this in front of the board for them to make the decision on.
So we'll need to, when we meet on March 2nd or 3rd, we'll need to make a decision both on the audit firm and the
That's what I would
financial
propose.
statements.
That's what I would propose.
We need to make a recommendation on each of those separately, or
Yeah.
are you gonna make a recommendation yourself on doing the financial statements?
I would hope that the audit committee makes
Okay.
that financial statement, and I'm able to have the same opinion. that
Okay.
y'all are. That's why I'll put that one.
So you just recommended we kind of basically copy this over?
Well, what I think that your motion should be is for y'all to say we like this form, and go ahead and do the RFP with the Granville County one as the basis for it, and then leave the editorializing up to me, because that's what I'd like to do this afternoon and get it out.
And once again, I know we're kind of ramrodding this through a little bit, and I apologize for that, but time's of the essence. I'm not, and part of this is boilerplate from the state treasurer.
It is.
Okay.
It's pretty thorough.
It is very thorough. I like how they have specified that they want somebody with governmental auditing standard expertise. I think that's important since it's such a, very specific presentation.
It's about this deep and about that wide.
Look, there's tons you're gonna be learning about governmental accounting.
Sure.
It was a bloodbath last year for me, man, trying to pick it all up. All right. So any questions on that? Like I said, once again, I apologize. I know we were ramrodding this down. I'd rather us had an hour to kind of go through it and pick it apart, but quite honestly, we don't, and I'm not sure, at least for myself, I could add a whole lot of value to what Granville County's already put together here.
Just so I think by consensus it would be okay. And Mr. Schiavone, what I propose that we do is by consensus that the group be okay with me using the Granville County proposal as the baseline, and to develop a specific one for the town of Holden Beach, send that out.
Can we do that by consensus, or we need to make a motion on it?
Especially since your item said discussion.
Oh, okay. That's especially since it says discussion. So the thing I'm learning is you got to say discussion and possible decision. If you only say discussion, you can't make a decision.
But if there's not a consensus that's not what you want me to do, I won't do it. We'll have
I
to.
think, Mark, you okay with that?
He doesn't get the vote because he's not
That's right.
here.
Well, come on.
He can listen.
Well, but he has
I have no issue with it.
Okay.
he has experience. We
I
live
just
for.
I had a question for David. David, do we ever require any single audits of things like FEMA reimbursements or anything like that?
Absolutely. When it hits a threshold, I believe that's $750,000. I'd have to double check that, but that is an actual. We don't requirement, but should that occur, that's when the threshold will hit.
Is it when the funds arrive or as they're dispersed that they have to be audited?
It's when they arrive.
Okay. So is there a chance that we would have us
This year.
Not.
hit that threshold before June 30th?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Although we're going to do a budget amendment, or I'm going to propose to do a budget amendment for the commissioners at the March meeting for the Florence and Michael storm damage repairs that are right now about $24 million. That is really going to be a placeholder budget and won't be, in essence, it'll be more like a capital project, a holding tank for those funds as they go out and come in. But we won't see a project for those monies until the winter of 2021.
Okay.
So the 2021 audit
We'll probably have
have that as a single audit.
and that is going to be dependent on when we're able to get a project done.
Okay. All right, so everybody good with the direction we're going. We're doing it by consensus. All right, number 8. We're looking at March 2nd or 3rd to get together. It will probably have to be about 3 hours to look at the bids that we get back in. Our hope is that if we get them in by Friday, the 28th, David can email them all to us that weekend or that Friday afternoon so that we can start looking at them. So my suggestion would be we go March 3rd, which I think is Tuesday, so we got Monday to look at them. Once again, we had to move quick, and I apologize probably enough for that, but we're trying to hit the March Board of Commissioners meeting, which is March 17th, with a recommendation by this committee. So if we meet on the 3rd and we need to meet another date, we can to finalize it up if we have to. But ideally, it would be nice if we could make a decision on the 3rd. If we can't, we'll just schedule another meeting to finalize up the decision process.
So we're going to need to develop some sort of scoring matrix prior to
That's the next thing we're going to talk about.
Are you fine with meeting up here again? The boardroom is
So unfortunately, March 3rd is a Tuesday. How's that going to impact you? We can meet late if we need to.
It's fine. Actually, March 2nd is a very good day, so.
Okay. Tony?
I'm good. I'm making it.
All right. Mark, you said you're not going to be, are you going to be around in March? No. Yeah, you are.
July.
No, I'm back March the 1st, Sunday evening, so
Okay.
I can make.
All right. We good? All right. So we're going with March 3rd, 1 o'clock. Give you time to drive down? All right, 1 o'clock, 4.
And Heather will coordinate with you on, because that'll have to be a special meeting
Okay.
on the protocol to that.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
that'll only be the only thing that
That's the
y'all
only
are
thing
doing,
on the agenda.
And we're gonna be lucky if we get 3 bids, 3 proposals. We hope we get 3 proposals.
Really? Okay. All right, so to Jeff's question, the board actually, Miss Pat made a recommendation, and the board accepted on Tuesday night, that the audit committee come up with a formal process for selecting the audit and then making a presentation to selecting the auditor, and then make a presentation to the board of commissioners on how we arrived at our decision. Her comment was, in previous years, it's just been a recommendation that comes to the board of commissioners with no facts as to why they chose a certain firm or how they chose a certain firm. So she's asking that we basically come up with a scorecard. What I was going to suggest was we use the criteria that's in the RFP that David sends out as the basis of our scorecard. So when he sends that out, I'll take all the criteria in there, format it into an Excel spreadsheet that looks like a nice, pretty scorecard. Jeff, you probably have more experience with scorecards than I have.
Yeah, but then you have to weight each of the questions.
Yes. So, I mean, Jeff and I can work on it together and send out something for y'all to look at.
Can we ask Granville County if they've done one? To see if we could just.
Well, what they have
no
there-
reason to reinvent the wheel.
Their selection process is pretty much covered in that narrative there, and it talks
It's the
about-
weighting piece that I think is where it gets subjective. It's easy
Yeah.
to list, the 10 things you're looking for, but it's the weighting, and that can be the devil's in the details of that, really.
You got any friends in Granville County?
I can call the finance officer there, that's for sure.
All right. Can you try to lug them a call today or Monday?
Let's see if their finance, if their telephone number's in here.
Well, in the interim, in case we can't get it,
Yeah.
how about Jeff and I work on the first draft of a scorecard? We'll try to get it out to you by the end of next week.
And how will you decide how to weight? I'm curious just what goes into that. What's the most important? If you have 5 requirements,
Well, let's talk about
what
it.
are what are the most important ones that you would weight the heaviest? I don't know how that works.
Well, I would think it'd be, number one, be the experience with doing similar audits.
Delivering on time,
Yeah.
cost.
Well, why don't we, as a group right now, go ahead and let's decide what we think the top 5 are. That might give us a running start on the weighting. So, cost.
I think that's a factor. I don't know how we rate
Yeah.
one level, but
Yeah.
schedule, they need to be able
On
to have the
time.
resources to meet the schedule. Cost should be considered.
All right.
Everybody will be able to do this financial preparation piece. David, you don't have any concerns? That's not a weighted, that's kind of a minimal requirement. They have to be able to do it the way we want it, right?
Yeah, well, I would assume that if they're not able to do it, they won't submit a bid.
Yeah,
So, is that really a criteria?
probably not.
Okay. Also, I think reputation,
Yeah.
I think one of the things, I don't know if somebody was kidding or not, but they made the comment that the one thing we didn't do last year was do a Google search on Rives and Associates to see what was going on with them in the court system.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Was that just a Google search, and did you have the attorneys to look in some sort of legal search?
Well, somebody made the comment that you could have done a Google search and you probably found that they were having some issues already. That's the easiest way to do it. I mean, I don't know.
And do we ask, I'm assuming we ask for references. Do we check
Yeah.
those before the final selection's made, or
We actually have not asked for references in the past.
That's what I was going to want. When somebody said reputation, how do you judge that?
Well, I think that what you could do is, in part of this, I believe that we're just asking for a list of clients. Mm-hmm. Leading here is asking for a list of clients, and that, correct me if I'm wrong here.
I think following up with them would be
follow up.
good.
Yeah, I think we need to be specific. Can we follow up on their?
that we plan to contact. We want a list of clients that we plan to contact them.
Here it is. Provide a list of local officers' current and prior government clients, including types of services performed, number of years served for each. I mean, that's...
So if they do that, we can pick up the phone and call and say, are you happy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be your experience, David, that the other managers would be pretty open about that, wouldn't they? They'd say, yeah, this is good. Confidentially.
Yeah.
It's not like HR when somebody calls and
Right.
says, are you happy with an employee that left? I'm not discussing it.
Yeah.
I think it's common that they typically include resumes of their staff that are likely to be doing the audit. Gives you their background and history too that you can use as a basis to judge.
Yeah, that's action number 5 on the Granville audit. This stuff, number 4, is describe your audit organization's participation in AICPA sponsored or comparative quality control programs, peer review. Janine, is that?
That's normal.
That's normal.
It is.
Is it a high? I mean, is it something that would knock you out of something if you weren't doing that, or?
It's required, so they have to do it, but it would be interesting to see if their peers have rated them highly.
And how do you, I mean, I'm a neophyte here. How do you go see if how their peers have rated them?
I don't think that's a public record. I believe we'd have to inquire of them for their documentation of their latest peer reviews.
Okay. But it sounds like to me, their peer review ratings.
Something you'd brag about.
Well, yeah, but the key criteria for scoring them is their peer review ratings.
Good point.
And I guess somebody said it earlier. Mark said it, maybe. Professional experience of the auditor that's going to be doing the work, not just the firm, but also the auditor itself. All right, well, that's 5. I'll tell you what, Jeff, I will take some of these and put into an Excel spreadsheet and send to you. Like I said, you have more experience in the past with doing vendor reviews than I did. I had to sign off on them. I didn't do them.
Yeah, lucky you.
I know.
Okay. I'm asking Steve at Granville County, as finance officer there. I'm emailing him saying, I'm using your RFP as template for our solicitation. Are you weighting any of your primary criteria, and if so, would you share?
Good idea.
All right, so Jeff.
I'm pretty sure he'll give something.
Okay, well, if they give us something, we'll include that. If you get it, you'll send it out to everybody. Jeff and I will work on. We'll take what's here and start as a scratch to give us a second option to look at, and then we can, by email, we can try to finalize up the scorecard before we get to March 3rd. Got to remind you, do not reply all to any emails. It kind of does this thing called open meeting laws. And
Yeah, we'll talk about that in July.
And Woody, there's another page there that they're not as serious list of items, but
yes,
that would incorporate some of that.
yes, it's on number 5 on page 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. I said I'll do all the typing up first, and you can have me
Appreciate
scan
it.
it up. All right, so we got consensus on that plan. All right, thank you very much. Okay, number 10. The town does have an ordinance for the audit committee, and it states what the audit committee should be doing. The previous board made some changes, I think in 2018, to this ordinance. It has a function in there, or one of the items in there is that the audit, the ordinance should be looked at from time to time. I'd like to look at the ordinance. Some of the members of the Board of Commissioners have expressed their interest in us looking at this ordinance. I've asked David if he just kind of lightly go through it. There's a fine line this committee, unfortunately or fortunately, has to walk. We're number one. We are an advisory committee. We're not a I don't know what the other word would be for it, but we're not
Operational.
Yeah, operational per se. We're more of an advisory committee. We're not here. David works for the Board of Commissioners. The auditor works for the Board of Commissioners. The auditor and David are accountable to the Board of Commissioners. So we are an advisory group. We're not here to mandate what David does or doesn't do, or how he does it. We're to make suggestions to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners are accountable to making sure the town's financials are running right and David's doing what he's supposed to do. So there's a fine line in there, and I'm sure Tony and Mark will agree that we had a hard time, especially last year, and which side of that line we were walking on, and it created a heck of a lot of tension. So one of the things I want to do is us spend time between now and maybe middle of the year looking at this ordinance, doing our own research, not depending necessarily what's here in this ordinance, but doing our own research and seeing what other towns are doing. Or Janine, you're in this world a lot more than we are. His experience is dealing with audits from people like Visa and MasterCard and some of the large payment processors in the United States, so he's seen a lot of different things. But I feel like we ought to do our own research about what an audit committee should be doing for a town.
And does the league have resources there, David, that would be kind of prototype audit? Because a lot of people have audit committees.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon that they have.
Well, not in government. There's not a lot of government audit committees. In businesses or firms, there are audit committees, but a audit committee for government is kind of an odd duck. So that's a issue here.
And I think one of the things we need to ask ourselves is, do we need an audit committee? I mean, I think we need to ask that question.
Well, like what was the quote the other day? We're here where we are. We're here where we are now.
That's right. We are where we are.
We are where we are. I'll add that this. It's my turn.
Yes, your turn.
This is a fairly robust set of duties, and there could be. I don't have the manpower to do these types of things. So we just don't. We've got a 2-3 person shop, and we could be consumed by this. 2 comments specific.
Hang on a second for Jeff's work. 2 to 3 people for the finance operations.
That's right. Yeah.
We got a few more employees than that, but not
Right.
many.
For that's everything from in the door to out the door.
Mm-hmm.
2 specific comments. The Board of Commissioners just came up with a mechanism to tell y'all to tell committees, managers, the attorney what they want y'all to work on. And second to that is, yesterday we had a goals work session on, and I think there were 5 categories. Mm-hmm. There were 5 big yellow stickies. They did Crawford Slip method, and the things that they would like to do. I haven't reviewed that yet, and I think that perhaps the things that the board is going to identify as their strategic goals and objectives may play an important part in what they're going to be told that they want you to focus on. I did see a couple of things that talked about fixing stuff in the audit, but beyond that, that's maybe a couple of bullets in here. Plus, you got a specific tasker on picking the auditor. That was we're putting some things in play that perhaps that would be useful information when it's finalized by the commissioners too. I'm not
When
trying
does
to.
that come? When will that come? When will that process?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Right now, we're putting them all together, and then the board's going to go back through them and decide which ones they want to make as their top priorities. So they're supposed to be getting me their calendars, and we're going to be coming
So
up
the
with,
next month.
with the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Forgot to
March.
send you my
And
calendar.
that goal setting process, was primarily done as the baseline to develop budget season and move forward on, but it does facilitate this type of discussion too, I would think. And I only offer that
Well,
up as to point that out.
And one of the things and Pat and I have talked about this, Pat's one of the other commissioners, is it's kind of a chicken and an egg. We could ask the commissioners what they think the audit committee ought to do.
Right.
And what I think predominantly what we might hear from a couple of the commissioners is fix the problems.
Right.
Well, that doesn't come in a whole lot. Or we can ask this group to go back to the Board of Commissioners and say, here's our recommendation of what the audit ought to look like, and let them opine on that.
Okay.
So it's chicken or egg. I hadn't decided if I want to put on the agenda a specific discussion with the Board of Commissioners about what the audit committee could be doing, because, as I said before, the distraction is, you know who I'm talking about, a couple of those commissioners are just going to say, get the outstanding deficiencies fixed.
Okay.
That's the first thing they'll say. That's my opinion. Could be totally wrong, but I think I'd rather.
Well, but even that,
yeah.
that relates to, some things that may not be applicable to this.
And aren't we under number 10? I think we all agree on getting everything fixed as the number one priority. We just need to do that as aggressively.
Yeah.
We're given the authority in number 10 to evaluate the usefulness of
That's right.
Right.
and prepare potential
Yeah.
changes.
So, from a timeline standpoint, David's got to work on the budget the next few months. We probably need to shoot for our
Maybe the
July
July
meeting to have to set aside predominantly the most of that meeting talking about the ordinance.
Yeah, and that type of timeline will also provide y'all opportunity to dialogue with each other, and then to talk to me too, office visit with me. That I would find value in that, and I would hope that would help y'all too.
And like I said, in the interim, we can use our April meeting to talk, just have discussion about this. We can set aside our July meeting to actually do the work on this, if we want to do it that way, if you're okay with that. And David means what he says. There's a lot of value. Unfortunately, there's 5 of us or 5 of us and 1 of him, but spending time with David, understanding some of this stuff, because Janine, you're CFO, a lot of this stuff is backhand for you. For Jeff and I, and Mark was a CPA, so a lot of this is backhand to him. Jeff and I, some of this is pretty new. Like I said, I did learn what the yellow book was last year.
Well, this is a huge list, in my opinion.
Yeah. And as David said, and I haven't done my own research yet, other than just looking at a couple of towns. David's correct. A lot of towns don't have necessarily audit committees, or if they do, they're very.
Well, they stand them up in times of crisis.
Yeah.
That's when you see one. Oh, make an audit committee because there's something.
And maybe you need one just to help the town with picking a new auditor and that kind of stuff. I don't know, but we did. I'd like for us to do our own research and come up with our own ideas, as opposed to saying, okay, this is it. Let's work on our own thoughts and then come back and see how that compares. If y'all are okay with that.
That'd be a good exercise.
Good. All right. That was 10 and 11. So we're at we did good.
Rock and roll.
Can you? I'm not sensitive enough to this, and maybe David, you can help remind us. How can we communicate amongst each other if we wanted to, or can we, if we were talking about things like this? Can we talk with each other on one-on-one?
I'll let the clerk, because she's the open meetings law expert.
You can talk to each other one-on-one. You can't have a quorum, which would be the 3, because that would take you into needing to advertise and have the open meeting. But, you know, if you want to talk to each other, it can't be simultaneously. So if you want to send emails out to each other, you can't even do that and talk to each other through emails. Like Woody had said earlier, if you send an email out, if you don't hit reply all and you just reply back to that person. But
Can
you're
you send an
still-
email to one person?
Yeah, yeah. It's really when you're getting into the group talk is where you're...
Can you send it to two people?
No, because that would be 3 of you.
Okay.
So make sure I'm clear. If Tony replies my email, that's fine.
As long as then you don't forward it to everybody else and ask for
Yes.
their replies.
Yeah.
It gets to be a fine line in the gray area.
I mean,
but-
it's the
but yeah.
intent. I mean,
Right.
part of it's just the intent.
A lot of it is self-policing, the intent and public, the intent participation for the purpose of making a decision. If you're gathering information individually amongst other individual, it's kind of my discriminator, that's okay. But if you're kind of daisy chaining the same thing, you send it to him, he sends it.
So if we want to go sit with you, we got to do it one-on-one.
I can do two.
You can do two.
I can do two. And I don't have a problem with that.
And a lot of it's the intent. I mean, we talk about the Board of Commissioners. The 5 of us in the Board of Commissioners can be in the same room in a social. We just can't be talking business.
But most of the time for this type of committee, it's technical information that you would discuss with me. It may have policy implications, decision-making implications, but I can't see that a discussion between you, I, and Janine on just exactly what is this balance, how is this, arrived at, how does it relate to the town's, combining statements. I don't think that is a policy decision. That's more of a technical discussion that the staff would help out.
Sure, as long as there's no corn.
But I don't count. I don't count. Yeah, I don't
You're
count.
good.
Yeah.
The big thing is the quorum. And as David said, the daisy chaining. I tell you we're gonna make a certain decision, and you say yes, and you call Janine and say we're gonna make a certain decision. Yeah, dude, that's not kosher.
Yeah, and the intent is transparency and public involvement in policy discussions and decisions. That's the prime directive there.
People should be able to see how you came to the decision, not just your decision. They should be able to have the benefit of the whole process. Is what
Welcome to the fishbowl.
I was gonna say I'm not used to this world. But you're not either.
I took me a while to learn, that's for sure. Yeah, it was really good last year when Noel did the open meetings session. Wasn't it last year or the year before last?
It might have been a couple of years ago, but we did our own version for when we did your orientation. I mean, we could always schedule something again. We could do that Noel version, the David and Heather version of it.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know how many new committee members we have for the town, but it might be good to
Most
do it again.
committees change in July, so
Yeah.
maybe we could do something after
July.
July.
Okay.
Yeah.
That may be a short agenda item to cover open meetings law as a preamble to some of the things we do.
You plan on doing it at our next meeting?
Well, at one of them.
I don't think it comes naturally to lay people to understand that.
Okay. We have a couple of abbreviated things, enough to keep you out of trouble in the early days. I believe we can cover that if you'd wish.
All right, so I'm gonna have to be careful here because it's not on the agenda for our next meeting. We'll have open meetings 101. We're gonna start talking about the audit committee's ordinance, having discussions on that. We'll assume by then we will have an auditor chosen.
By the board.
Recommended it?
Yeah.
Yep, so that should be done. That's just a matter of signing contracts. then.
Right.
Okay. So that's basically for right now, the two big things. I'm sure it may come up with some other things we might want to talk about. And all.
Well, if we've done a selection on the auditor by then, I should be in a position to say exactly where we are and what the schedule is for the proposed audit, or at least have a construct of that. And say, hey, we're going to meet.
Can we Mike can invite them in to at least talk to the audit committee.
Yeah, but if they can.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we'll do that if we can.
All right.
because I don't want to, one of the pushes for the board last year was to get that audit done on time by Halloween, and I am assuming that will be a focus this year too.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So let me go around the table. Tony, any comments, questions, thoughts?
But all good, thanks.
Hopefully these meetings will be better than the ones we experienced last year.
Already started better.
Good. Janine?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mark, you got any thoughts or comments?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Jeff?
I'm good.
David? Public?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, I need a motion to adjourn. We got a first and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.